Hey friends. Seems like everything I've been playing these days is an F sharp major. I never played much in F sharp major. Never improvised much in that key. But for whatever reason, both the classical music that I've been playing recently and the improvisational music has all kind of drifted towards. I think it's just because you can play it kind of like something about that black key gliss. Really hard to beat. I had a really interesting morning. I had a call with a friend, and we just got to chatting about some things. And the conversation itself wasn't so much all that noteworthy, or we didn't get into anything too deep. But what sort of sparked for me was a sense of something that I've thought about a number of times recently, and just over the last, I would say, several years, which is a kind of, I don't even know what to call it's a sense that our gender relationships are the crux of much of our ideological disagreement. That, I don't know how, that sounds like a really bold statement. I don't know. I'd have to go in. I'm not a researcher. This is something that I'd have to actually look at. I feel like I'd have some good tools for looking at how this might work, because a lot of the research that I have done earlier in my life into the nature of kind of the evolution of the human mind and levels of development deals with the nature of masculine and feminine and the kind of polarity of those energies, and then corresponding proclivities that emerge, like transcendence and inclusion. Masculine energy is very much a direct line, transcendent kind of energy, and feminine energy puts the emphasis not so much on the rocket ship taking off and transcending the world, going beyond into pure consciousness, but on including all of the world. And so that it's almost like we measure this is just a single example of how, if we are looking at the world from the perspective of each polarity, or somewhere along that spectrum, if we fall more towards one side or the other, our perspective is going to be colored by a desire, by what will feel like a value or a principle of, we want to see more transcendence in the world, we want to see more inclusion in the world. Either of these on their own, first of all, is, from a philosophical point of view or a theoretical point of view, it's not a possibility. The two poles are not opposites. This is the thing that's so interesting about polarity. It's not that the two ends of a pole are opposites. They're actually mutually entangled or mutually entwined manifestations of oneness. You can't have oneness at one end of a polarity. There's no such thing. It takes the sum total of all the energies intermingled of the polarity in order to have oneness, in order to have wholeness. But from the point of view of any individual human mind, where we happen to be standing in our life, how our mind perceives the world, we're falling somewhere along that spectrum. We probably move over the course of our life. We learn, we inform ourselves, we explore different territories of energy, and we find our way to hope. The thing is, I think, by and large, my experience is that I land somewhere that's kind of consistent, although if I look at my whole life, it's moved a great deal. But I also have given myself more and more opportunity to kind of travel and to see reality from a multitude of perspectives, from a bunch of different angles, to really embrace. And an integral, this is called speaking the different languages. In all the different kind of evolutionary stages of development, certain kinds of language are particularly prevalent, right? A very traditional culture will think of things in a certain way. A modernist culture will use a certain kind of language to describe reality, and they'll mean certain things with the words they use. They might be all speaking English or whatever language, but they'll use the same words to mean different things. You get to a multicultural, pluralistic kind of worldview. We're using language in a different way. And but what stands out to me in this is a sense of this sense that gender, the polarity of masculine and feminine is at play, and unfortunately sometimes in conflict, not because there is an inherent conflict, but because our partial expressions, our limited expressions from one viewpoint or the other, from whatever side we're coming from, fail to acknowledge that the other half of the coin is fundamental to our own nature. And by picking a position and holding to it so steadfastly that we can't even, that we're not willing to adopt the other position, we're actually repressing our own nature. We're actually really kind of contorting and repressing our own nature, because ultimately our own nature as consciousness, whether we're a man or a woman or wherever we are on the spectrum, we are ultimately our consciousness is oneness, and all of the entire spectrum is our own nature. It doesn't mean our body, our mind won't kind of locate itself, but it means that's a partial position. It's temporary, it's impermanent, it will change, it will move, it will not always be this way. And I think, the reason this feels, I think, the conversation that I had this morning just kind of really very superficially touched on this. It evoked this line of thinking in me. It didn't really explore it, but it feels really germane to so much of what we're seeing in the world, and so much of the conflict and the intractability of the conflict. We talk about hyperpolarization, not just in America, but everywhere now, many places anyway. Well, polarization is by, it's literally in the word. It's polarity, kind of stretched. But the world's always been polarized. The world has always been charged with a polarity of energies. What's new is our unwillingness to acknowledge that our position is only a tiny little piece of the picture, and that the rest of the picture is also our nature. If we can't do that, we'll go down swinging for our one perspective somewhere along the spectrum. We'll fight to the death to prove that that's somehow, the right one. But is that really more enlightened? Doesn't seem like it. Doesn't feel like it's making society more enlightened. And I think I realize I'm sort of really just thought surfing right now, but I think the reason why this feels somehow important to me, the reason why my mind is going there and why I'm exploring this, is because it actually really does feel like there's a human dilemma, a dilemma of humanity taking place. That's not nearly as simple as the ideological battle lines would suggest. There's more going on. And there's room in that work and in that conversation for really intense, challenging, powerful, revelatory examination, self-examination, and reflection. What ultimately to me is spiritual contemplation. Contemplating the nature of reality, the nature of oneness expressed through reality. That work would not necessarily solve all the other problems, but it would create a conversation around the problems that allowed them to be solved, as opposed to creating a conversation around the problems that doesn't allow them, that gives none of us the ability to see what the right answers might be or where we might go, and has the perverse effect of reinforcing the problems, making them deeper, bigger, harder, worse. So, as I think, this is just kind of me looking at the world, but that's what I see in there, and that's what I long for in my own conversations about this, and my own, to the extent that I share my thoughts and my my musings about this with other people. That's where my interest goes. And that's what I think, when I look at my own work in the world, or what feels like the most inspiring, relevant work in the world, it's in that domain. It's in that territory. Because if that conversation starts to happen functionally, in a mutually acknowledging and respectful, caring way, we can solve all the other problems. That's doable. The answers are we've probably already hit upon the answers, but we can't get the conversation around the issues to accommodate the answers. So yeah, from F sharp major to the nature of human discourse. That's where I am today, folks. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.